Hey everybody, it's Professor Snar here checking in. Hard to believe, but we're at midterm in our course, and it would probably feel about right in terms of what we're doing and when it would occur in a less compressed format, but it feels like we're just, sort of plunging forward. It's the nature of the beast. But anyway, so we are just wrapping up Unit 3 in our set of units here, where I'm recording this on Thursday morning, so we're right kind of here, coming up to the tail end of Thursday's due date, and then the replies happening, and then probably people jumping into Unit 4. So I'll talk about Unit 4, but again, just keeping that big picture in mind, that Unit 3 is really crucial as far as finding the fine print that's going to work for this particular assignment that will carry us through the rest of our class. So getting something that's workable for Unit 3 is really, really obviously important. Because units 4 and 5 and everything that follows is going to depend on it. So again, finding some fine print that, as is explained in the unit here, is relevant to you. You're not just Googling stuff. It's sort of coming from a place, an organization, a company, a group, whatever, where you can identify an actual human being, a person, that you're going to create and then send a personal or a professional email to that asks about that fine print. And again, there's lots of different variations here, so it's hard to be really, really specific about this will work and this won't work, etc., etc. And as we get into Unit 4, you'll actually be writing that professional email, or at least drafting it, not sending it just yet. And so the way that you formulate it is going to be dependent on the fine print itself. Maybe there's a question that you want to ask. Maybe you just want to ask why it's in place. If it sounds like this, for example, is really drastic to me, I'm not going to ask them to change that policy exactly, but I might ask, like, why is this in place? Have you had problems with people not surrendering their card or whatever, right? So the nature of the feedback that you're looking for from the person that you send that professional email to is going to be different depending on what the fine print is. It may in fact be something that is directly affecting you and you really need clarity on because, it's a clause in a contract or a lease agreement or something where if you don't do something, a negative consequence will happen. Or maybe it empowers the organization or the company or the whatever to do something that seems really drastic and might actually happen that you want to guard against. So again, we're really experiencing how writing can work in the real world. This is not a class in how do you write a professional email, even though we happen to be doing that. It's really a class in discovering how to navigate a rhetorical situation effectively in the real world and actually, change things for the better. You become better informed, maybe. You discover some contract language or some fine print that you're bound to or might be bound to that's really problematic, and maybe it actually gets changed based on the work that you're doing for this class. So again, the big picture is really important to keep in mind. So like it says here somewhere, end user license agreements are a good place to go because they are all that legalese fine print. But again, you want to be really careful about assessing the feasibility of this research inquiry about what we're doing here. Is there a person that you can actually email? And if there's not, then, end user agreement for a big corporation is maybe not going to work for our purposes. So we want to target like an actual person that you can actually email, not just a customer service form or some web form that you have to fill out. So again, if we get into Unit 4 or Unit 5, even basically the end of our class, and you're telling me that, I can't find a person to email, it's just this form on the web, is that going to work? I'm going to point you back to like minute 4 in this video and be like, did you not watch it? That's like not coming to class. And if you don't come to class, you don't learn the material that you're going to be assessed on, just like, history, for example. I'll pick that kind of a subject, like a content-heavy subject where you're learning a lot of dates and facts and people. If you don't show up to class, whether it's online or face-to-face, to get that information, and then you just show up on test day, you're going to be asked, like, what was the date that such and such happened, and you don't have that information. So this is kind of the information that I'm giving you here for our class, and then it's articulated here as well. If you're coming back after this point and saying, oh, I'm really stuck because, again, that's like not coming to class. So it's really important to get this part right because everything that follows in the coming units depends on it, right? So again, double check the assignment here in Unit 3, make sure that you're set up for success, and then Unit 4 is, like Unit 3, a really important one, and there's a little wrinkle for our due date system here, because you'll be drafting your professional email as well as completing your annotated bibliography for this assignment, kind of in parallel, and again, I'll talk about this in just a sec, but you'll be drafting, not sending, just drafting your email and getting some feedback within a small peer group that I've set up that I'll show you in just a second here. So we want to be aware that the draft of that email is going to be due Wednesday, so not our usual Thursday. It gives people a little bit more time to get feedback back to each of their group members by that Friday. And then again, we've pushed the completing the bibliography all the way out to that Friday, just to give you a little bit of breathing room, relatively speaking, to get all this stuff done. So let's jump into 4 and see what we're looking at here. Again, reiterating the slightly different due date system. Here's the assignment for writing your email, and again, drafting your email. So we're going to start a Google Doc where you're going to do this so you can share it with other people and get them to comment on your document. It's really important to then understand this assignment as directly connected to where we started our class with all that research about how to write a professional email. Don't forget that you've done all of that research already. You analyzed emails that were basically spam to figure out what are the things to do wrong in your email to make it look totally unprofessional, to break the rules within a discourse community and completely fudge a rhetorical situation to screw it up. That's obviously what we don't want to do. But keep in mind that all of our units throughout the whole course are connected. It's not like we sort of finished the first 2 and now we're doing something totally different, right? So you can return to some of those sources that you found in Unit 2, I think it was, about writing effective emails to write your email. It's not like they're separate, totally separate assignments here. So starting a Google Doc, right, it just facilitates collaboration way easier. You're going to want to complete that draft of your email and post it to the discussion board in the assignment below, which is where the groups are laid out, for the first due date. So again, that's going to be that Wednesday by the absolute end of the day at the very latest. Some reminders about the pieces of the email, but again, you did research on this. You already have written stuff for this course about this. And remember, this is going to an actual person. So potentially, in most cases, the only thing that person, right, your audience, is going to know about you is the content of that email. So if it's all jacked up, right, if it doesn't do things correctly, most people are just going to hit delete. They're not going to spend time reading an email that might be spam or just looks weird and the person clearly doesn't really know what they're doing, so why spend the time? Or it's going to take forever to get a response because they're not taking you seriously. Or the response you get is going to be some formulaic, canned, thanks for your interest. End of story. Again, the more professional you can make your email, the more likely the chances of getting a real, legit, helpful response from the particular person. Now, can we guarantee getting a response? Of course not. But we can set things up to really improve our chances, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Now, because we're doing peer feedback, it's super important to get the sharing settings on your doc correct. It will be kind of frustrating, honestly, to me, if people are posting docs that we can only view and can't comment on. I'm talking about it here. We've done it throughout our course for sharing out different things. But it's really important that you set it for at least this commenting so that we can all provide feedback to your draft professional emails. It's really important to get that right. Now we're going to see our groups here, just kind of randomly, grouped into 6 people, or 6 groups, I should say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yep. You are responsible, if I'm Julia, for example, I'm going to post my document URL that I've set the sharing correctly. This is my professional email draft. It should be the whole text of the thing, right? So I can comment on the subject line, on the salutation, on the body of the thing, etc., etc. It's going to be addressed to a real person. It shouldn't be just to whom it may concern or nothing. That's a problem. So if I'm Julia, I'm going to post that URL to the discussion board by our Wednesday due date. And then sometime before Friday, I'm going to jump in and make sure that Erica and Maddie have also posted. And I, as Julia, will visit their URLs and ideally shared correctly, I'm going to be able to comment on their text. I don't need to edit directly. In fact, I shouldn't do that. I should just comment in the margins. And there's kind of a thing, I think it's down here maybe, right, about using the Google Doc comment feature. It's super easy. Try to just highlight like a limited amount of text. Don't highlight the whole thing, because then it makes other commenting kind of weird. But as soon as you highlight something like small, like this, the little comment button's going to show up here, and then I'll type my comment, and then make sure you click the comment. It won't autosave. You need to actually click comment. And make sure you're signed in and or your name is attached to the comment, because when it comes to grading, I'm really looking at those comments. That's a huge part of it, so I need to know like who said what. Okay, so we're looking for a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10. We don't want to go totally crazy here. When you're commenting on other people's work, to go back to my example, Julia is responsible for commenting on all the people who have posted on time and shared their doc correctly. If she's kind of generous, and I'm sure she is, if someone has posted incorrectly or maybe a bit late or whatever, maybe she'll jump back in and provide some comments. But again, technically you're only responsible for everybody in your group that's posted on time and shared their doc correctly. 5 comments minimum, 10 at the most. Again, it's not just the number that I'm looking for, it's the quality of the input. So maybe you catch a typo or something like that. That's sort of like really low order stuff. It's good to catch, clearly, because we don't want a bunch of typos in our professional email. But there might be some bigger things that you're going to look for. So I don't just want to see fix the comma, fix this capitalization, fix this verb tense. 5 of those is kind of like mediocre. Ideally, it's actually hard for you to comment because the professional email looks so good, in which case your comment maybe isn't finding mistakes or asking questions. It's like, this looks really good because I think it will elicit a response from the audience because, and then try to be specific. So not just like, this is great, this is great, this is great. Okay. So again, using the comment feature, make sure your name is in there. As the author in your doc, be really careful at this point not to resolve any comments. I need to see those so I can grade, right, what other people have been doing in your document. Obviously, you're going to have a chance to revise at some point, but give me a little while here to do that grading stuff before you start revising. So there's the whole professional email part. Oh, and you'll notice that if I click into the discussion board, there are already threads created for each of the groups. So you don't have to create a thread. You just want to jump into yours and reply to my initial thread, and then you can post your stuff. You'll also note that if you don't recognize any of the names, including your own, it's just because I am teaching 2 versions of this 1102 class right now, Net 02 and a Net 04. So I'm just using the Net 02 section. So again, if you don't see your name here, it'll be in the other one. You'll see yourself. And clearly, if you don't see yourself, email me right away. Sometimes I inadvertently delete names. I obviously try not to, but it happens. As I compile groups, I usually work in a Google Doc and, organize things so it looks better, but then I cut and paste, which is kind of why the spacing looks all weird sometimes. Not very professional, right? Anyway, but it serves our purposes. Okay, so in parallel then with writing your professional email, and I say parallel really intentionally because these 2 writing projects, one is going to be relatively short, the professional email, because we know that that's good professional email etiquette. The other much longer. They really run in parallel and they're clearly related, but they don't actually touch each other in the way that you might do research for a traditional research essay, where you do the research and it actually shows up in the actual essay. For our purposes, we're not going to quote 10 sources in a professional email. We're not going to quote any sources probably, except maybe the fine print itself, right, quoting back to our audience. This is what I'm interested in. So the research you're doing to complete your annotated bibliography here is in an area or areas that are related to your fine print. Again, It's hard for me to say exactly what fits because everyone's fine print is a little bit different. It's important to make sure that now we are rounding out the annotated bib with a full 10 sources. Now we're adding at least 3 new ones from an academic database. It doesn't have to be COD, but if you're a COD student, you have access to these. And we're making sure that we're using correct MLA formatting. So this is really like an internal to our class document where you're doing the bulk of the writing and research. The professional email is clearly something that circulates in our class, but is actually going to go outside of our class too. So this is an important point to think about as well. As you draft your professional email, you're not going to start with, "Hi there, my name is whatever. I'm doing this for a class." Like, that's not a professional way to start an email. It might be kind of interesting. And you can certainly mention that in certain circumstances where you think it might make sense in like, let's say, for example, you're having trouble finding an email. For our purposes, you need to email somebody. So somewhat awkwardly, but actually not, maybe it's a bank, right? You can't find a person to email, so you call the bank, or maybe you even go there in person and you're like, "I have this assignment to do for class and I had this question about the fine print. I have to send an email. Can I get a name and an email that I could actually send this to?" So it might seem weird to like make the phone call or talk to someone in person who could answer your question like right on the spot. Well, A, we need to do it for our class, but B, it's often good to have these things in writing. So, you know, the phone conversation that the bank is probably recording, but you probably aren't, that, you know, is that going to stand up over time? So sometimes even the awkwardness outside of our class of asking someone in person, not just the question you have, but an email for somebody who can answer that question, can serve you better because you're going to get a response, we hope, and then you'll have it in writing, and that's sometimes worth its weight in gold. But you're not going to start your professional email, the one that you're actually sending, with the whole backstory and context of "I'm writing this for a class and I'm a student," and et cetera, et cetera. It kind of undermines the ethos of the whole thing. Like, is the person going to take you as seriously? Nah, I don't think so. Right? That's my guesstimate anyway. Okay, so professional email draft, annotated bib, rounding out our sources, and then to complete the unit, updating your portfolio with those 2 pieces, your draft and the annotated bibliography. Okay, so again, lots going on, but this is midterm. If this were 16 weeks, it would feel really natural that we're at this place, right? Kind of getting into really the heart of the major project for this course, but in 5 weeks, it feels like we've just blinked. We were just introducing ourselves, and now here we are. Basically, in 2 weeks, we're done too, so keep your eye on that prize as well. Okay, so maybe more important than ever that you're really attending to these videos. I know they're long, but again, this versus 9 hours in class, it's a deal, trust me. Attending to the assignment details, reading, rereading, being really careful, attending to due dates, especially here because they're a little bit different. And when anything is confusing or you're just not 100% sure, even if you're 99, we always want to be 100. It makes confident writing is just almost always better writing. Be in touch with me. Send me an email. I'll try to get right back to you and clarify, whatever the question is, confirm that your fine print is going to work, whatever. I'll get right back to you. Okay? So really focus here as we get, honestly, towards the end of our course. Hard to believe, but true.